Nakamook shoved through half the exit bottleneck to book rocket Renrico. I caught up as he lowered his fist. I said, Benji. Nakamook launched it. The books popped from Renrico's grip and scattered. Jesus, Renrico said. Just shut the fuck up, said Nakamook. Bota, at the door, 20 kids plus 2 teachers deep, shouted, Hey! Except he didn't know to who. He couldn't see. Renrico was trying to back away from Benji, but Bota got the door open, and the crowd was pushing forward, up to the gate, so Renrico bounced off us. He said to Nakamook, We're all on the side! Nakamook plugged his hand in beneath Renrico's chin and lifted. He lifted swiftly till his mantis arm was straight, and then, in smaller increments at less rapid intervals, he lifted higher and higher from the shoulder. This action was called the impossible because no one else at school could perform it. Also, that's how it looked. Impossible. Nakamook often performed the action on people who, unlike Renrico, were taller than him, and to keep his balance he had to stand bow-legged, which, to the eyes of observers, always made him look shorter. I'd never been impossibled before, but I didn't think it would be too hard to disengage. You just have to kick him a good one in the torso or dig your thumbs deep into the soft part of his wrists till his tendons gave. It must have been that the suddenness of the action erased your sense of options, though. No one had ever gotten out of Nakamookian impossible before Nakamook had let him, and many even seemed to cooperate with the action, bending their knees in mid-air the way a baby does when you lift it by the armpits. The janitor stepped out of the bottleneck as soon as Renrico's feet left the ground. Benji hammered down on his skull with his free hand, and the janitor said, Ow, ow, ow. He half sat against the crowd, rubbing a sleeved forearm briskly through his hair, his dazed face slack. 13 inches above Benji's head, the bug-eyed eyeballs of asparagus revolved at me. He wrinkled between his pulsing temples, as if to say, Why? Nakamook didn't miss it. Don't act ignorant, he said to Renrico, shaking him a little. I set my hand on Benji's elbow and waited for him to feel it. When he felt it, he one shoulder shrugged at me, as if to say, Fine. To Renrico he said, Do not try to be us. Then lowered him slow and let go of his throat. Renrico crouched down to gather his books. The janitor helped him. Bota unlocked the gate. The crush of the bottleneck got heavy and then ended. I picked a rocketed book up and gave it to Renrico. I said, This won't happen again. Renrico looked at his feet. The fuck? Nakamook said to the air next to my face. Then the flunky walked past us. Foog, Benji told him. The flunky stalled for a second, walked on. Benji followed him past Bota into C Hall. I followed Benji. C Hall, lockerless, was always empty after school except for cage students who always got out of class last because of the gate. I told Benji to hold on. He slowed his pace. You're friends with the flunky now, too, he said. He's not my enemy. Nakamook stopped walking. He said, None of these guys are your friends. They're just scared of you. So what? I said. Whenever I'm scared, I wait for a chance to do damage who's scaring me. And then I do that. Isn't that what you do? I don't get scared of people. Nakamook said, Well, that's what everyone else does. I said to him, Even if you're right, I still don't lose anything having them on my side. He said, Listen, when someone's scared of me, I know they'll try to damage me the second they think they'll have a chance, and that makes me scared of them. And so I think I better damage them first while I have the chance. You should be scared of these people because they fear you, Gurian. You should damage them first. You should damage them again and again. You should damage them until they stop being scared of you, until your dangerousness is undeniable, and you're like a highway traffic or the edge of a cliff. Something they wouldn't even consider crossing. Then you make friends. It's the only way. I said, you and I never damaged each other. He said, we weren't ever scared of each other. But look, forget it. My mood just switched. So did yours. I touched his face. My face was smiling. We stood at the main hall junction, people shouting and shoving and flirting with each other. At the other end, the doors flung open and shut, and the hallway had wind. I could look in any direction I wanted, Benji said. I feel like a millionaire on the back of an armored jet ski. My samurai girlfriend who loves me is charging at a cartel speedboat to win a game of chicken. Isn't this the day's best part? You don't even have to remember to enjoy it. It enjoys you into itself. I could not imagine June as a samurai on a jet ski, but a ninja? She could be a ninja, hang gliding, and she could be my wife. I said to Benji, walk me to the office. Office, schmoffice, Benji said, you're killing the momentum. What's in the office anyway? We've only got 10 minutes before detention. 12 minutes. Just, don't you want to go out by the buses? I said, I got called. He said, that note the new kid brought? That was so long ago. Say you forgot. I said, you know I did the scoreboard, right? He said, I know I didn't do it, and Vincey and Levon were in the cage all day. I said, Brodsky's expecting me to come to the office and get my record. I made this really big deal out of getting my record this morning, and if I don't go and get it, he'll think I'm avoiding him. It should only take a minute anyway. Then I'll come out by the buses. Benji said, I'll walk you. Eliyahu came up beside us, raving, and this cage should fall, that boy who wet. I said to him, this is Benji Nakamuk. I said, don't fear him. And why should I fear him? Said Eliyahu. I said, you shouldn't. He said, but I don't. Still, this wet boy. I think it was the second worst thing I've ever seen, with his hand in the air. Did you see his hand in the air? It was too hard to think about what Benoit right then. Right then, I was thinking about gliders in June and getting my record. I said, Eliyahu, did your mood just change? He said, why should my mood change? I said, look at Main Hall. He said, it's filled with people who are desperate to get out of it. This I should celebrate. They will get out shortly, and I will go to detention. This I should celebrate. Benji said, you drained my buzz, new kid. The three of us headed through the main hall, rushed together. Benji in the middle, and 2 steps in front of us, squinting his eyes, cutting a tunnel from the crowd with his elbows. Halfway to the office, I saw June putting books in her locker, talking to some shaved-headed girl I didn't know. My throat went dry and choky. I had the poem to give her, and the Coke and the pass pad I'd risk getting steps for, but I couldn't give them to her in front of some girl I didn't know. And even if I could, there was no table there to throw the pass pad onto. Well, I made the I thought you might like a coaster joke. If I threw the pad on the main hall floor, the joke would lose conceptual integrity, and the pad would get stomped on by the traffic. What I did then was Chomsky. If after Hashem replaced Isaac with the goat, Abraham, instead of slaying the goat, had thought to himself, but I was prepared to kill my own son. And then turned from the goat and slain Isaac, it would have been just a little bit more Chomsky to me. Once I saw June in my path thinking, it's not time yet, and then ducking between Nakamuk and Eliyahu before she could spot me. But that's what I did. I mistook a blessing for an inconvenience. Nakamuk said, she's right there, Klebold, the girl of your dreams. I said, keep walking. We kept walking. Which girl is this? Said Eliyahu. Nakamuk said, the redhead. Eliyahu looked over his shoulder. He said to me, you love a Gentile? I said, she's not a Gentile. She looks like a Gentile, said Eliyahu. Who cares, said Nakamuk. I said Hashem wouldn't fall me in love with a Gentile. Nakamuk said, asked Eliyahu, you think I look pretty Gentile? I didn't hear what Eliyahu said, though. I'd already turned into the office by the time he responded. Either that or he spoke too softly. Jelly Rothstein's sister Ruth was leaning against Pinge's desk, tapping a mint against her teeth so it clicked. Across from her, crowding the waiting chairs, were 4 main hall shovers who seemed short of breath. June's ex, Josh Berman, was one of the 4, but I wasn't aware of that. Blake Acer's face was the only one I knew. What's more is, despite the fact that Berman's existence loomed sudden and huge over all my thoughts, I didn't even consider the possibility that he himself might be standing before me. In the few hours since lunch, when I'd banished the thought of him, Berman had become, by way of said banishment, a mythical figure of such towering stature that to just bump into him would have seemed about as likely to me as just bumping into an American president or Natalie Portman. Philip Roth, even. In Acer's right hand was a bright orange box cutter. On the far chair, a cardboard carton. He knelt on the chair that I fell in love with June in, sliced through the tape, reached into the carton and came out with a handful of 2006 scarves. The scarves were, as Ruth had reported, they'd be in Nada y Pues Nada, the last installment of State of School Spirit, her 3-part series for the Aptokistic News, entirely absent of disputed embroidery. I stepped a little closer to get a better look, partly because June had dated a shover, but only partly. I'd been following the controversy surrounding the scarves ever since I'd started attending Aptokistic. For the main hall shovers, this moment was colossal. 10 weeks earlier, in the first week of school, Blake Acer got elected shover president. The margin was narrow, 31-30, and the platform he ran on was scarf redesign. Though by Rothstein's analysis, his win was dynastic. Acer's brother Wayne had founded the Shovers. This had happened back in 2002. Rothstein couldn't get an interview with Wayne, but according to a sidebar titled Dawn of the Shovers, also by Rothstein, Shover lore had it that after seeing Scorsese's Gangs of New York, Wayne read 50 pages of the book in one day, pausing only for dinner in front of the TV. He saw footage of a riot in England on a news break, soccer fans storming the field of a stadium, stomping on rivals, trampling each other, uprooting seating. Full story at 10. Wayne glugged down some milk and went back upstairs, Googled the search terms soccer and violence, and came across an excerpt from a book about hooligans. No one remembers the title. He biked to the bookstore and purchased the book. Took it back home and read 15 pages. Then he broke for the news and ice cream. The hooligans protected each other. The clubs they belonged to had tough-sounding names. They were always together, sharing a cause, making up cheers, and probably even the fat ones, Wayne bet. Even the pimpled, getting girls. They wore matching scarves sewn with intricate crests that despite being scarves, were totally masculine, and all because of soccer, the girliest sport you could play without a shuttlecock. The next day at recess, Wayne told his story. No one wrote the speech down, but its opening was famous. I've read 65 pages and we need to get scarves because basketball is better than soccer. By the end of the week, the paperwork was finished. Wayne had filed a petition with 25 names, and Miss Kimball signed on as the faculty sponsor. Like the sci-fi and fantasy and pastry lovers clubs, unlike Squaw Squad, debate team, or band, the Shovers got semi-private status. They could meet twice a month after school in the gym, under Miss Kimball's supervision. But the school would provide no bus space for away games, no section in the bleachers, no official uniforms. Shovers ordered and paid for their scarves themselves. 21 guys formed the club that first year, about 7% of the Aptekissic male students. Anyone who wasn't a band kid could join. Band kids were the enemies of the main hall shovers, partly because their purpose rivaled the shovers. Though they did give an annual concert in spring, the primary function of the Braves brass band was to support the Indians during pregames and rallies and home game halftimes. Partly because they got the best seats on the bleachers, mostly because the shovers needed kids to harass, to buttress their identity, and keep up morale. And whereas the few counterparts they had in the conference, i.e. the knife-like fangs at Heinrich Junior High, or the Uberdunk Slammies at Twin Groves Middle, and the Kinder Pop Pep Squad at Sandburg Middle, were encountered but twice per season, the band kids were everywhere, always. From Red Zeppelin, the Red Indian, part of one Ruth Rothstein's State of School Spirit. And only 2 years after having founded the Shovers, Wayne Acer, as a freshman at Stevenson High School, fell in with a crowd not known for loving sports, not known for the pride they took in their school, their family, or even themselves, a crowd that is known to everyone at Stevenson, a crowd everyone at Stevenson's knows as the Skids. Wayne bought a chrome-zippered black leather jacket, cut holes in the knees of his jeans, and smoked. According to Blake, Wayne changed for a girl. You just could never change for a girl like that, the new Shover president told me over lunch. If you change for a girl, who are you really? You don't know who you are. And I'd say so right to Wayne's face, 'cause it's true. I have said it right to Wayne's face last May. Who are you now? Who are you, Wayne? What about basketball? You founded the Shovers. You lived for the Indians. You knew all the stats. And he did. Ruthie did. And not the stats for only Aptekissic either. He knew all the stats in the conference. Where do you think I learned all that stuff from? Wayne wasn't just some average older brother. Wayne was my mentor. Everything I know because of Wayne. But I asked him who he was now, or who, he thought he was. And he looked at his feet and giggled this really uncomfortable giggle. And what that giggle meant, Ruth, was, I don't know who I am, Blake. I really need your help. I'm lost. Luckily for us, the Bulls were playing the Sixers, and Wayne was fighting with his girlfriend, who will so-called be a famous drummer one day. And I convinced him to watch the game with me. He wouldn't do any of the cheers we used to, and he kept going outside to smoke stinking, disgusting, death-causing cigarettes, but he only did it during timeouts, I kept noticing. See, in the end, he hadn't shaken basketball. He never will, either, 'cause no one can once you catch the bug, and so on. That was last May, and since then, things have gotten a little better. Wayne says he still doesn't care about the Shovers.